Hey there. If you're considering learning guitar, I want to debunk a really persistent myth that's out there about the best instrument to start on. A lot of people think and say and advise people that the best type of guitar to start on is an acoustic guitar, and that if you want to play electric, whatever you want to do, really you need to start on acoustic and then graduate later on to electric guitar. You can start on whatever type of guitar you want, but it's simply not true that the acoustic is easier to play. It's actually far harder to play than the electric. And in this video I want to explain the reasons why that is. First thing, acoustics have way thicker strings than electric guitars. So if you're starting guitar, one of the biggest problems is sore hands, sore fingers, sore fingertips. Well, acoustic will make all of those problems 10 times worse for you because the strings are much, much thicker and stiffer. Second point about acoustic guitar, the strings on acoustic guitars are much, much higher off the fretboard than on electric guitars. There's quite a big gap. Hope you can see that. There's an enormous gap between the strings and the frets, and on a guitar that's referred to as the action. Acoustic guitars have a way higher action than electric guitars. The strings are higher up. That means there's further to press them in to play notes. And this gets worse the higher up you go. The action gets higher. That combined with the thicker strings really does make everything much harder to play on acoustic guitar than electric guitar. I should just add that if you want to change the action on your acoustic guitar, if you want to lower the action, on electric, that's a case of just getting out a screwdriver. It's literally a 5-minute job. You just turn a couple of screws. On acoustic guitar, what needs to happen is you need to take off all the strings. Then you need to either do this yourself or you need to take it to a shop. This part here, the bridge, and this part here, the nut, okay, these little ivory looking things, they need to be pulled out of the guitar and they need to be sanded down to lower them. And that's very, very easy to get wrong and sand too much. And if you sand too much, then you need to get a whole new replacement piece and you need to file slots for the thing. So if you want to change your action even marginally, you've got a great big DIY project, or else a trip to the luthier at the local guitar store. Point 3. Acoustics are much bigger than electrics and much harder to hold. Now, this is my acoustic. It's a brand called Ovation, and they're famous for making this shape. It's quite cool. It's not actually made of wood at the back, it's made of some kind of carbon fiber. And this is specifically designed to be comfortable. But it's still a lot bigger than electric guitar. Now, if you get a traditional acoustic guitar, it'll be even bigger than this. My first acoustic guitar was a lot bigger than this, and it didn't have a nice rounded back to it. It was a straight back. And I distinctly remember picking that up for the first time, and it was just huge. For the first months it felt absolutely huge in my arms. So that's a problem for anyone really, but especially if your hands are a wee bit smaller or your arms are a wee bit smaller, or if you're younger, that can be a really big problem. You can see how big this is in my arms compared to this. The size difference is just enormous. It's much, much easier to get my hands all over this. And the acoustics sort of right out here. Point 4, and this is a funny one, this always makes me laugh. People think electric guitars are loud. And of course they can be loud. An AC/DC concert's certainly loud. But acoustics are actually the loud one. That's their natural volume. If I'm really, really soft, that's their volume. If I'm actually playing properly, that's their volume. That's going to be a big problem for you if you live in any kind of apartment or with other people. Basically, you're not going to be able to play this after whatever time in the evening when things kind of shut down. Let's compare the volume of that to an electric guitar. Here's my electric unplugged. It's much quieter. Now, of course, that's unplugged, that's not plugged into an amplifier. But the great thing about amps is they have a volume control. You can set the volume. They don't have to be really loud. So the sound, the volume that people are imagining when they say electric guitar is loud is because they're imagining an AC/DC concert or a Led Zeppelin concert or a Guns N' Roses show or something, a wall of amplifiers. Of course that's loud, but your home practice amp is going to be more like the size of that. And you're in complete control of the volume, so it doesn't need to be loud, it doesn't need to be any louder than you want it to be. And you can plug headphones into that. So you can basically have silent practice with your electric guitar, and to the outside world, that's all they'll hear. So acoustics are the loud one. Electrics are controllable. Point 5 about acoustics. They have one sound. They have one sound quality, one type of sound, which is that. It's a really nice sound, but if you get bored of that sound, you're out of luck because that's the only sound it makes. Electric guitar is completely different because it's not an acoustic sound coming out of the instrument, it's actually an electrical signal that produces the sound. So because it is electrical, you can put anything in between the guitar and the amplifier to change that signal and change the way it sounds. So for electric guitar, you've got thousands of different effects pedals and effects units that can be put in the middle of your signal path, which can completely manipulate the sound, and you can create almost any sound that you can imagine with your electric guitar. With acoustic guitar, it's this. And that's all you get. Last point about acoustic guitars. Now, I'm quite lucky with this model. This is one of the reasons I chose this acoustic guitar, is that it has a cutaway. This is called a cutaway. And that's giving space for the hand to access these higher frets. Now, that's quite good, but a lot of acoustics don't have a cutaway. They have the same as this on the other side. If you look up, or if you go into a guitar store, better to go into a store, and see their acoustics, you'll see that loads of them, probably most of them, don't have a cutaway, and the body extends around here. Now that means on most acoustic guitars, even though they have lots of frets, their range actually stops at fret 14. That's where the neck joins the body. So that really restricts your options versus an electric guitar, which would tend to have 22 frets, but may even have 24. If you compare 14 to 24, that's almost another entire fretboard that the electric guitar has in terms of number of frets, number of notes that you can access high up. So that really, really limits your options if you want to do any kind of lead guitar playing. Bearing in mind the earlier points about the strings being thicker and the action being higher, every single guitar technique is way harder to do on acoustic. Hammer-ons, you got to push the string down further, it gives you more resistance. Slides, you got to keep more pressure on the fretboard to have the note ring clear by the end of your note. Bending, don't even talk about it, like the resistance off of these strings. You need to work pretty hard to do bends that are really, really easy on electric guitar. So that range is just something to think about, especially if you want to do any lead guitar. That's really, really limiting. So those are some things to bear in mind. Now my recommendation here is to start on the type of guitar that inspires you the most. So I've made some points about the acoustic guitar, but if all the artists that you listen to play acoustic guitar and that's what gets you inspired, if that's why you want to play guitar, then by all means play acoustic guitar. But what I would say is if you're not sure, if you quite like acoustic sounds, you quite like electric sounds, you're not maybe sure what you'd like to do in the future, my recommendation for sure would be to start with electric guitar. It's the easier to play, it's the one with more options, more sound possibilities, it's got a bigger range, it's more comfortable to hold, and will give you a better chance of succeeding at this instrument. I don't know why this myth still persists. It's incredibly out of date. If you ask anyone who actually plays, they'll echo everything I've said. Anyone who's played both types of guitar would agree with what I've said because it's just factual. The strings are thicker, that's a fact. Okay, it's not one person saying it's harder, another person saying it's easier. That's a fact, that makes it harder. The action is higher, that makes it harder. The range is less, that means there's less you can play. You can't manipulate the sound. That limits the sonic options. Those are all facts. So I don't know why this myth still persists, But if you want to play guitar and you want to play electric guitar, just play electric guitar. There's nothing stopping you. You don't need to go through some process of paying your dues on acoustic guitar before you can graduate to electric guitar or something like that. That's not the case. And what's more, I actually did that. So I know that that's a waste of time, because the first time I picked up an electric guitar, it was one of my friend's guitars in school. And I could not believe how easy it was to play. I couldn't believe it. I'd been playing acoustic guitar for, maybe it'd been a year or two, but it was night and day. It was like night and day, the difference between these two guitars. I couldn't believe it, and I couldn't believe at that point, you know, that you've got this myth, this urban myth, this commonplace belief that acoustic's easier or better to start on. That's not only wrong, it's the complete opposite of what's true. If you know someone who's considering starting guitar or has just recently started and is about to make this mistake, consider sharing this video with them so that they can make an informed decision about which instrument is best for them. Thanks for checking out this video, and I'll see you next time.